Hello, everybody. This is Wendy Lovejoy, Marketing Director for GaReia, and I am really excited today. For the people listening in on this call, you're going to be just as excited after you hear who I get the privilege of introducing on the call today. This is a gentleman, you've heard the name roaming around GaReia and all the positive feedback and the excitement when everybody heard that Mr. Dyches Boddiford was going to be at GaReia's general meeting this coming Monday. The second Monday of every month is the general meeting, but this Monday, which is August the second week of the month, the 11th, you will get to meet him in person, hear him speak in person, and you can ask some questions when the presentation is over. And if you're on this call listening to anything that he says and you feel like you have a question you wanted to ask, I really encourage you to take a notepad, write these questions down, and next week, if you pay attention to your 7-day forecast and the emails that we send out, or you go to the GaReia website, you will see the next open call that we're doing, where we will just do a lot of Q&A, and you can ask all the real estate investing questions from an expert in this industry. And so I'm just so excited that I definitely am ready to turn the call over. Before I do, I want to always give it back to our president of GaReia, Mike Jacobson, and of course our executive director, Karen Yap. And with that being said, I want to now have this gentleman just run with the call. And again, our keynote speaker for Monday's event is Dyches Boddiford. Sir, I turn the call over to you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to GaReia members that are calling in. And I've always enjoyed being associated with GaReia. I was actually president of GaReia back in the early 1990s. And GaReia is made up of a lot of volunteers, and the organization really needs input from all of its members. So I encourage people to join and not only join but volunteer and help out with the association, because the association is as good as you make it. Just to kind of give you some background on who I am, because some of you don't know me. I'm not high profile. And we'll talk about that a little bit as the evening goes on here. We only have about 20 minutes to discuss these issues, so I want to make sure that we kind of get as much in as we can. I've been doing real estate for 34 years now, and I started out, like a lot of you, doing it part-time while I worked for someone else, and built up a nice little portfolio of both houses and loans, notes that I had purchased and notes that I had made to other borrowers. I also have owned apartment buildings. Over the years, over that 34 years, I've done a lot of different things. I've been full-time for 20-something, 25 of those years, I guess, now. And I have done development on mobile homes, mobile home parks, tax deeds. I've done options, most anything that you can come up in real estate, I have done, basically because I wanted to find out if there are areas of real estate that I wanted to concentrate in. And the ones I have enjoyed the most and made the most profit out of course, are the ones that I have concentrated in. And one of those areas is single-family homes and lending. So next Monday night, I'm going to be talking about what you as an investor should be able to do with your portfolio for the long term. And we're going to talk about creative asset protection techniques, some of which we will also talk about tonight. We'll talk about other things that you need to know for your investing over the long term, and even down to talking a little bit about estate planning in addition, because you need to kind of set things up now as you go along. So I'll be speaking next Monday night. The meeting starts at 5:30. That's when the doors open. The actual meeting itself starts a little later, and you'll find that at the GaReia website, GaReia.org. That's GaReia.org. And you will find out where the meeting is, directions to get there, and I will start speaking somewhere around 7:30 or so during the general meeting. So I would encourage all of you to be there next Monday and enjoy the presentation, as I will enjoy presenting it to you. So what we're going to talk about tonight is kind of an overview of investing. And I want to start out with what I call my philosophy of wealth building. And this is something I've kind of learned over the years as I've actually built my own portfolio. It's my own personal roadmap. First, you need to determine what it takes for you to live on. What is your budget? Not exorbitant budget, not a Spartan budget, but a very comfortable budget. And that's not only for you, but for your family as well. And how are you going to fulfill that budget? Many of you will work for somebody else, but some of you will work for yourselves. For instance, you might be flipping properties. You may be running a landscape service. You might have a software consulting company. Those are all ways that you start out getting the income that you need to live on. But while you're doing that, you need to learn how, and you need to figure out what you're going to do to replace yourself. Replace the hours that you're putting in, earning that income to live on, with assets that will generate income automatically and replace the hours that you have to work. And how do you do this? Well, rental properties are a great way to do it, but you also may have loans that you're making with money that you have, or you may be partnering with someone else and creating other types of passive income. And once you have replaced what it takes for you to live on with assets from that you have built up over a period of time, you are truly financially free. Now, you may not be wealthy, but if you've got automatic income that when you put your feet on the floor in the mornings when you get up out of bed, your money is made for the day, then you are financially free. At that point, you freed up your time. Now, how will be the best way to utilize your time? Obviously, some of it needs to go to continuing to build assets that will generate the income for you over the long term, but the rest of your time should be concentrated on building wealth. Building wealth is building assets that have current value increases, but not necessarily current income increases. Because remember, every dollar after the money that you need to live on is going to get taxed. And between the state and federal tax, you'll be at least in the 33% to 40% tax bracket. So you're looking at something like 40 cents out of each dollar earned that you can't use to or don't need to use for living on is going to be taken in taxes. And so 60 cents is what you've got to turn around and reinvest. Well, the question is, can you earn more on a dollar that you reinvest or on 60 cents? And the obvious answer is on the dollar. So how do you accomplish that? Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. We'll talk a little bit about IRAs, 401ks being a great place to do the building. You can also use 1031 exchanges in your regular portfolio, and that's the way that you build, your assets, your wealth over the period of years. Then we need to talk a little bit about basic asset protection as you go along. The longer that you have an asset protection plan in place, the better protected you are over the long term. One of the first things you need to do is keep your mouth shut. A lot of people go out and brag about what they have, and that opens you up for someone saying, he's got more than I got, and I want some of it. You don't need to make yourself a target. Be a they sent me person. W-2 employees like helping W-2 employees. They don't like helping the rich landlord or what they perceive as the wealthy landlord. So you always want to be just the manager. You want to be the person that works for somebody else, and that somebody else just sent you down to take care of this or to sign up new tenants. So don't tell people what you own. Be a they sent me person. Use a post office box rather than your home address. In the 34 years I've been doing real estate, I have never had one tenant or a contractor show up at my doorstep unannounced without my invitation. They always send their payments to the post office box. So that is one way to keep a low profile. Then have good insurance, title insurance, casualty insurance, liability insurance, and know the difference of the different kinds of insurance and know what they will and won't cover. For instance, if you're flipping property, you do not get a standard dwelling policy on that property. It may not pay off if you have a loss. For flipping properties, you need to have a renovator's policy or has different terms for different insurers. But if you're renting out, you want a different kind of policy. You want a dwelling policy. So a renovator's or builder's risk policy for flippers, a regular dwelling policy for long-term holds for properties that you're renting out. What's the difference? Well, the dwelling policy has both a liability component and a casualty component. And you want to make sure that you're covered for the liability and you or entity that might own the property is covered for the casualty portion. With a builder's risk policy, renovator's policy for flip properties, it only covers the property itself. It may have a small liability component, but typically it will not have as much of a liability coverage as the dwelling policy does. So you may have to get a separate liability policy for that. But make sure that whoever your insurance agent is knows what you're doing and can give you good advice on the kind of policy, the kind of coverage that you need for insurance. And of course, you need to understand entities for the properties that you're holding. Which properties go in a corporation? Which properties go in an LLC? And I'll give you a quick rule of thumb on that, though it will vary with the person in their particular situation. You want to use a corporation, S corporation for most of us, for flipping properties because the IRS considers that earned income, and if you don't use a corporation, then the flipper property goes on Schedule C of your personal tax return, and you will have Social Security and Medicare taxes on the whole earned amount in addition to regular income tax. So don't use an LLC, don't use a partnership, and don't have a rental property in your own name, a flipper property in your own name. For the long-term hold properties, you want all of those, all the income and all the capital gains and so forth to come through to you. So that's where you use an LLC. So an LLC will actually give you asset protection because it has a liability shield just like the corporation, but it has a better taxation structure for long-term hold properties. The corporation, again, has the best tax structure for flipper-type properties. Then, of course, most of you are probably wondering right now, what about the land trust? Where does it come into play? Well, the land trust is great for an advanced strategy where the corporation or the LLC is going to be the beneficiary of the land trust. You should never be the beneficiary of a land trust directly. You should own the entity that is the beneficiary of the land trust. That's why I say it's a more advanced concept. It's something that a lot of people think they need right in the very beginning, but it's actually something that you need to learn about the corporation LLC first and add the land trust to your tools a little bit later. Well, the other thing I promised we'd talk about before we ended the call tonight was a little bit about estate planning. Some of you are just beginning your investments, and you may be very young, and you may feel like, okay, well, you'll worry about that in 20 or 30 years. No, you need to worry about it now. If you have a spouse, if you have children, you need to have a will right now. If you don't have a will, who is going to be the guardian of your young children may come into question after you and your spouse both pass. So make sure, and you never know who's going to go first. So be sure that both you and your spouse have a will, and you designate in that will a guardian. Now, a will does a lot of other things besides that, but that's the absolute reason that you need a will to begin with. Durable power of attorney is important. You need to, if you get laid up in the hospital and you can't handle your own affairs, who do you want to be able to handle that? A lot of times it's the spouse, but with a lot of the new laws and so forth, spouses aren't automatically allowed to deal with financial accounts at banks and brokerage companies. So you need to have that durable power of attorney. Now, that's not just a power of attorney. It's a durable power of attorney, which means that if you're laid up, they can handle things for you. You may want to have a living will. A lot of people think about living will as if you pass away, it's a way to avoid probate. If you live in Georgia, probate is not a big expense, except for the attorney and some of the court costs that come along, but those still aren't that big of an expense. But a living will could avoid a lot of that. A living will, though, in Georgia, I think, is really important because if you get laid up in the hospital, someone that is a successor trustee or a co-trustee with you on your living will can handle things much easier than they can use the durable power of attorney to handle. And this is the things in addition to just financial aspects. And of course, there's that was a living trust I was talking about. Then the living will is a document that is in statute in Georgia and in many state statutes that allows you to tell people up front what do you want to happen in case you are unresponsive in the hospital. Do you want if there is no good prognosis for you recovering, do you want them to pull the plug? What do you want to happen? And this is something that you really need to do, not just for yourself, but to protect your family. Your family could be faced with significant hospital costs if you're kept alive and you're in a vegetative state, just because somewhere up front you did not designate what you wanted to happen. And you may be in a situation where you can't speak, you really don't know what's going on, and the hospital, the doctors say that they don't know that you'll ever recover or don't expect you to ever recover. So don't put the burden on your family and spouse to have to go to court to get some kind of order to be able to pull the plug. Have it in that simple little 2-page document that's called a living will. So we've covered a lot of territory, but I want to make sure that you do understand that if you're going to be an investor, if you go on properties, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a plan for you and for your family. And this is something that you need to start day one. This is not something that you wait 5 years to put into place. Put it into place now. Monday night, when we'll have more time and I have an overhead to kind of show you some of these things, we'll go through a lot of the material and give you more details of what you need to think about. But I want all of you to think about having an action plan that you take action on now, not down the road 4 or 5 years. So I'm hoping to see all of you Monday night, August the 11th. GeorgiaREIA.org is the place you go to find the directions. That's GaReia.org. And you'll find the schedule for the meeting as well there. And I'm glad that you tuned in to this call tonight. We will be scheduling a call next week for Q&A, a live call. So be thinking what questions you'd like to ask and jot them down, and be watching your email and watching GeorgiaREIA.org for when that call is going to be. So thank you, and hope you have a good week. Bye.